Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good midnight. No matter what time you're watching, welcome. And leave a comment. What town are you watching this story from? And hey, if this story showed up for you, it's because it deserves to be heard. So, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more like it. The sun was already starting to dip behind the Dork Hills Undie when I decided to head home on the dirt road that cut through the ranch. No, I was coming from another hard day, working with the cattle, checking fences, separating a sick calf, fixing water troughs, and checking the pastures that stretched as far as the eye could see. My body was begging for rest, and my horse, Thunder, was walking at the slow pace of someone who also felt the weight of the day. The red dust of the prairie clung to my sweat-soaked shirt. The smell of dry grass mixed with manure rose from the hot earth, and the crickets were already starting their evening symphony. It was June, the dry season in Oklahoma, and the sky had that fiery color that only those who live in the heartland know. The clouds were scattered like dirty cotton, promising a few more days without rain. Thunder flicked his ears, restless. I'd known my horse for over 10 years, ever since he was a wild colt that no one could ride. He didn't get agitated over just anything, always been smart, wary, with that instinct that only animals from the countryside develop. I pulled the reins and looked around, trying to figure out what had made him nervous. That's when, up ahead, near a clearing with trampled grass, something made my blood run cold. A figure lying on the ground. It was a young woman. From the dark hair I could see even from a distance. And worse than that, around her were at least 8 large dogs, mixed breed strays, skinny as fence posts, but with hungry eyes and bared teeth. 2 of them were already growling low, that guttural sound that precedes an attack. The others were circling, studying, waiting for the right moment. My heart was racing like an out-of-tune engine. I didn't think about anything but acting. I didn't calculate the danger. I didn't think about the consequences. Kicking Thunder's flanks hard, I took off with him at a full gallop straight towards the pack. The sound of hooves pounding on the dry ground echoed through the empty field, and the dogs, surprised by the sudden approach, backed up a few steps. The wind whipped at my face as we got closer. I could smell the animals, that stench of wounded, desperate, and dangerous animal. "Get out of here! Get out!" I yelled with all the strength in my lungs, my voice cracking in the dry air. When we got closer, Thunder neighed loudly, and I, shouting, swung the reins like a whip and lunged forward, making the horse charge at them. It was a dangerous game. Horses can get scared of dogs, and if Thunder reared up, I could be thrown into the middle of the hungry pack. Some of the dogs jumped to the side, others fled, their paws kicking up clouds of red dust. The most stubborn ones backed away, growling, showing their yellowed canines, but started to move away when they saw that I wasn't going to back down. The last dog, a yellow mutt with scars on his snout and a torn ear, stared at me for a few tense seconds. His eyes had a hunger that went beyond an empty belly. It was the hunger of someone who had lost their humanity a long time ago, who survived on pure instinct and despair. But when Thunder took another determined step towards him, snorting through his nostrils, the animal finally ran too, disappearing into the thorny bushes. Silence returned to the field. Only the sound of my heavy breathing, the horse's loud snorting, and the distant song of the mockingbirds in the nearby trees. I jumped off the saddle in a frantic hurry and knelt beside the young woman. She was unconscious, covered in red dirt from head to toe, with torn clothes and scratches on her legs and arms. Her pale face and chapped lips showed that it had been a long time since she had eaten or drank properly. Her dark hair was stuck to her dirty, sweaty face, and her skin showed burns from the strong prairie sun. That's when I saw the detail that cut my heart like a dull knife. There were rope marks on her wrists, purple and deep, as if she'd been tied up shortly before being left there. The marks were recent, maybe a few hours old. The skin was chafed, with signs that she had struggled against the restraints. Who does that to a human being? What kind of rotten soul ties up a woman and abandons her in the middle of nowhere to be devoured by hungry dogs? I placed my trembling hand on her neck, feeling for a pulse. It was weak, irregular, but it was there. She was breathing with difficulty, but she was breathing. She was alive, and that was what mattered at that moment. I picked up the young woman in my arms with all the care I could. She was too light. She weighed less than a 50-pound bag of feed. I felt the bony protrusions under her skin, the extreme thinness of someone who had been starving for a long time. It wasn't just recent malnutrition. It was chronic hunger from someone who had been living poorly for months. I put her on the saddle, in front of me, holding her firmly with one arm while holding the reins with the other. Her body swayed limply against my chest, and I felt the heat of the fever that was starting to take over. Her breathing was shallow, intermittent. "Let's go, Thunder." Slowly but with haste. The horse understood the tone of my voice. He set off at a controlled trot, careful not to jostle the precious cargo we were carrying too much, but with the urgency that the situation demanded. With each movement, I checked if the young woman was still breathing. Her body was dead weight against me, but I could feel her chest rising and falling irregularly. The dirt road that led to my house seemed endless. The sun disappeared completely behind the distant hills, and darkness arrived quickly, as always happens in the countryside. Only the crescent moon lit the potholed road. The crickets were singing loudly now, in a symphony that filled the night, and in the distance I heard the melancholy hoot of an owl and the distant howl of some wild animal. When I finally saw the yellow lights of my house, I felt a relief that I hadn't experienced in a long time. The 3-bedroom house, simple but solid, with the wide porch where Mary used to sit on Sunday afternoons, crocheting and watching the movement of the little birds. The house that became too big for me, alone, after she was gone. I stopped Thunder right in front of the main door and got off with the young woman in my arms. She moaned softly, the first sign of life since I found her in the pasture. A weak moan, but it gave me hope. "It's okay, girl. You're safe now. No one will hurt you anymore." I pushed the door with my foot. I always left it unlocked, as is customary in the countryside, and went inside. The house smelled of loneliness and silence, that smell of a place where only a man lives, without the delicate perfumes and special spices that a woman brings. I took her straight to the guest room, which hadn't received anyone for 3 long years. I put her on the bed with the utmost care and turned on the ceiling light. That's when I could see clearly the deplorable state she was in. She was no more than 20 years old, maybe not even that. Too thin, with bruises in various shades of purple and yellow on her arms and face. The clothes, a dress that must have once been blue, were in tatters, torn in several places. I went to the kitchen to get clean water, cotton cloths, and the first aid kit that I always kept up to date. I came back and started cleaning the wounds with all the care. There were many. Scratches from the dogs, cuts from thorns of the prairie, grazes from being dragged across the rough ground. Each wound told a story of suffering that I could barely imagine. While I took care of her, applying iodine and bandaging, a dull anger grew inside me. Anger at whoever had done that to such a fragile creature. Anger at a world where people could be treated like trash, discarded when they were no longer useful. Anger at my own powerlessness in the face of so much cruelty. I finished cleaning the worst cuts and went to get a clean nightgown. I hesitated at the door of my room. They were Mary's clothes, kept in the drawer for 3 years. I never had the courage to touch them, to donate them, to throw them away. They stayed there like ghosts of a happiness that will never return. But at that moment, I knew that Mary would understand. I knew she would approve. I took the white cotton nightgown, her favorite which she wore on hot summer nights, and went back to the room. I changed the young woman's clothes with the utmost respect and discretion, without looking more than necessary. It was my duty to care, to protect, to give dignity to someone who had lost everything. Then, I sat beside the bed and started giving her water little by little, wetting her chapped lips with a damp cloth. She swallowed instinctively, even unconscious. Her body was asking for water, asking for life. It was a good sign. There was still a will to live in that battered body. I pulled the wooden chair that was in the corner of the room and sat beside the bed. I wasn't going to leave until she woke up. The clock in the living room read 10:30 at night. Outside, the night creatures were having their noisy party. Bullfrogs croaking near the pond, crickets chirping in the grass, wind swaying the big trees that surrounded the house. I looked at the young woman sleeping in the yellow light of the lamp. In the face, relaxed by sleep, you could see that she had been beautiful before everything that had happened, before someone decided to break a life that hadn't even started properly. There was a delicacy in her features, a youthfulness that not even suffering could completely erase. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes for a moment, listening to her breathing gradually returning to normal. When I opened them again, she was looking at me. Her eyes were brown, big, full of fear and confusion. She tried to get up, but she didn't have the strength. She looked around, trying to understand where she was, whether she was in danger or safe. Distrust was natural after what she'd been through. "It's okay," I said in the gentlest tone I could manage. "You're safe. No one will hurt you here. You can rest easy." She tried to speak, but only a hoarse moan came out. The throat, dry from being without water for a long time, didn't let the words come out. I picked up the glass of water that was on the little table. Slowly, small sips, don't rush. She drank cautiously, suspicious but thirsty. Then she looked at me again, studying my face as if trying to decide if she could trust me. Where am I?" she managed to whisper in an almost inaudible voice. "In my house, my ranch. I found you out in the pasture, surrounded by dogs. I brought you here to take care of you." She closed her eyes, remembering. When she opened them again, tears were starting to form. "The dogs," she murmured. "They're gone. They won't be back." "My name is Eleanor," she said in a voice still weak, but firmer. "John," I replied. "John Luck Smith. This is my ranch, and you're going to stay here until you're completely recovered." Elena tried to sit on the bed, but the dizziness was stronger. I held her arm carefully so she wouldn't fall. "Slow down, girl. You've been through a lot. Your body needs time to recover. I don't know how to thank you. You saved my life. There's no need to thank me. It's what any decent person would do." She shook her head slowly. "No, not just anyone. A lot of people would have driven right by." We were silent for a few minutes. Eleanor looked at her own hands, still marked by the ropes. I didn't know what to say, how to ask what had happened without hurting her more. "Are you hungry?" I asked finally. She nodded, and I could see that she was starving. I went to the kitchen and heated up a leftover of bean and cassava soup that I had made for lunch. I came back with a small bowl. It was better to start slowly after so long without food. Eat very slowly. Your stomach needs to get used to food again. Elena ate like someone who hadn't seen food for days, and she probably hadn't. Each spoonful was a visible relief on her face, a small victory against the hunger that must have been her constant companion. "Thank you," she said when she finished. "It's been a long time since I had a real meal." "How long?" "I don't know. Maybe a week, maybe longer. A week without proper food. How can someone be so cruel?" "You're welcome. Now go to sleep. Tomorrow we'll talk better when you're stronger." I turned off the light and went to my bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about who had done that to Elena and why. What kind of person ties up a young woman and abandons her in the middle of the woods to be devoured by dogs? What kind of hatred, what kind of evil can lead someone to do that? Around 3 in the morning, I heard a scream coming from her room. I ran there and turned on the light. Elena was sitting on the bed, shaking like a leaf, with her eyes wide with terror. "Nightmare?" I asked, coming closer. She nodded, wiping away the tears that were running down her face. Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. You didn't bother me at all. Do you want to talk about what happened? Eleanor was silent for a long time. I could see the internal struggle, the difficult decision between trusting or not trusting. Then finally, the words started to come out. It was my stepfather. He's the one who left me there. I felt the blood boil in my veins. Your stepfather? My mother died 2 years ago. Cancer. I stayed living with him because I had nowhere else to go. I didn't know any relatives. But She stopped, swallowing hard. He wanted things from me, things that weren't right. Yesterday morning I said I was going to tell the police, that I couldn't take it anymore. That's when he got furious, tied me up and took me there. The anger I felt was greater than anything I had ever experienced. A clean, righteous anger from someone who sees innocence being trampled by pure evil. Where does he live? I asked, trying to control my voice but unable to hide the fury. Mr. Smith, please, don't do anything. He's dangerous. He has a gun. He has friends who do what he tells them to do. If he knows I'm alive, I can't let it go. What he did to you, I just want to forget. I just want to stay away from him forever. I looked at Elena. So young, so hurt, so scared. What right did I have to decide for her? What right did I have to expose her to more danger? Okay, I said after thinking, but you're going to stay here as long as you want. No one is going to take you out of here against your will. This house is your house now. For the first time since she woke up, Eleanor smiled. A small, weak but genuine smile. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Just John. I'm not anyone's mister. She lay down again, and this time she slept without nightmares. I went back to my bed, but I stayed awake looking at the wooden ceiling, thinking about how one person could be so bad to another, and thinking also about how, for the first time in 3 years, my house didn't seem so empty. There was life there. There was someone to take care of. There was a purpose beyond just existing. The rooster crowed before the sun came up, as it always did on the Yudranchen Niue. But for the first time in a long time, I woke up without that heavy feeling in my chest, without the emptiness that had haunted me since Mary passed. There was someone in the house, someone who needed me, someone to care for. I got up slowly, trying not to make noise, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. The strong smell of the roasted beans I bought in town started to spread through the house, mixing with the fresh morning air that came in through the windows. Outside, the day promised heat. The sky was clear without a single cloud, and the horizon already showed the first colors of sunrise. When I went back to check on Elena, she was still sleeping soundly. Her breathing was calm, her face relaxed. The bruises were already starting to turn yellow at the edges, a good sign that they were healing well. I left a glass of fresh water on the bedside table and went to take care of the animals. The routine of the ranch didn't stop for anything or anyone. The cows were mooing in the day corral, impatient for the morning feeding. The horses were neighing in the paddock, asking for feed. The chickens were cackling in the yard, waiting for corn. It was a symphony I had known for decades, but that day it seemed different, less lonely. I was pouring corn into the chicken's trough when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw Elena standing in the doorway of the corral, wearing Mary's nightgown under a pair of my old jeans that I'd left in the room in case she needed them. The clothes were big on her, evidence of how thin she was, but there was something different in her face, less fear, more hope. "Good morning," she said, her voice still hoarse but stronger than the night before. "Good morning. How are you feeling today?" "Better. Much better." She looked around, seeing the Jid Ranch for the first time in the clear light of day. "It's beautiful here. It seems like a place of peace." "Mary always said that. My wife. Where is she?" "Passed away 3 years ago. Stomach cancer. It was quick, but it was painful." Elena lowered her head respectfully. "I'm sorry. No need to be. It's part of life. We're born, we live what we have to live, and then we go. But I didn't say how much it still hurt. How I sometimes woke up in the middle of the night thinking she was in the kitchen making coffee. How I still kept her clothes in the drawer without the courage to donate them. How I sometimes talked to her out loud, expecting an answer that never came. "Do you want to have breakfast?" I asked to change the subject. "Yes, please, if it's not a bother." "No bother at all, on the contrary." We went back to the house together. Elena walked slowly, still weak, but already with more firmness than the night before. I served strong black coffee in the aluminum mug, the way I learned to make it in the countryside, and cut thick slices of homemade bread that I had been making myself since Mary passed. It was one of the few domestic things I managed to learn. Elena ate with the appetite of someone who was really hungry, but trying to hide it, not wanting to show too much need. I served more bread, more coffee. She accepted without much protest. "John," she said after a while, "I need to tell you something." The tone of her voice made me stop chewing. There was something serious in the way she spoke. "You can tell me." "I'm pregnant." The mug almost slipped from my hand. Pregnant. 3 months along. It was because of that he abandoned me in the pasture. Said I was a problem he wasn't going to solve, that he wasn't going to support a bastard. I felt a mixture of rage and protectiveness that caught me completely by surprise. "Is he the father?" Elena nodded with an expression of deep disgust. "He is, but I didn't want to. I never wanted to. He forced me several times. I tried to resist, but he was stronger." The rage returned, even more intense. I had to take several deep breaths so as not to break something right there in the kitchen. Thinking about someone forcing a girl like Elena, hurting her like that. "Elena," I said when I managed to control my voice, "you're safe here, you and your child. No one will hurt you as long as I'm alive to stop them." She started to cry, a silent cry of relief and fear mixed together. "I don't know how I'm going to raise a child. I don't have anything, no money, no house, no family that can help." "Yes, you do. You have it here. You have me." Elena looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me well." It was a fair question. Why was I? Maybe because I saw in her the same loneliness that haunted me. Maybe because Mary always said that we receive in proportion to what we give. Or maybe because after 3 years living only with pain, I had found someone who needed more help than I needed my own sadness. "Because it's the right thing to do," I replied. "And because this house has been too empty for too long." We spent the rest of the morning talking at the kitchen table. Elena told me about her poor childhood in a small town near Tulsa in Oklahoma. The father who left when she was 5 years old without giving anyone an explanation. The mother who worked as a maid, a cleaning lady, anything to support the two of them. How she met her stepfather when she was 15 years old, a man who seemed good at first, kind and helpful, but who showed his true colors after her mother died. "He drank a lot," she said, stirring distractedly in the empty cup. "And when he drank, he got violent. First it was the slaps, then the punches, then it was other things." Each word was a stab in my chest. How could someone be so heartless? How could a person look at an orphan girl and see not someone to protect, but someone to exploit? "And you never thought about running away before?" "Where to? I didn't know anyone. I didn't have money. I didn't have anywhere to go." And he always said that if I told anyone, or if I tried to run away, he would find me and kill me. I believed him. "And when did you find out you were pregnant?" I tried to hide it as much as I could. I wore loose clothes. I didn't eat in front of him so I wouldn't throw up. But he noticed when I started to show. He got furious, said he wasn't going to support a bastard, that he was going to get rid of me. Eleanor stopped talking and looked at her own hands. The marks of the ropes were still purple on her delicate wrists. "His way was to leave me for the dogs," she completed in an almost inaudible voice. We were silent for a long time. Outside, the sun was warming up and the animals were looking for shade under the trees. The June heat in the prairie, too, didn't forgive anyone, neither people nor animals. "Elena," I said finally, "do you want me to take you to town to get an exam, see how the baby is doing? I don't know if I have money for a doctor." "I'll pay, it's not a problem." She hesitated, biting her lip. "But no buts, it's the least I can do. Actually, it's what I want to do." Actually, it was more than the least. It was what my heart was asking for. For the first time in 3 years, I felt that I had a purpose beyond just existing from one day to the next. In the afternoon, we put Elena in the old pickup truck and went to the Crystal City. The clinic was crowded, as always happened in small towns in the countryside. Elena was nervous. She squeezed her hands all the time and looked around, as if she expected someone to show up and take her away by force. "It's okay," I said, putting my hand on her shoulder. "No one knows you're here, and even if they did, they wouldn't be able to take you." The nurse, a middle-aged woman named Connie, who knew the whole region, examined Elena with care and experience. She ordered blood tests, listened to the baby's heart with a little device, measured the belly that was still small. "Everything is fine with you two," she said at the end, smiling, "but the girl is malnourished. She needs to eat better, gain weight, take vitamins to strengthen." We stopped at the pharmacy and bought everything she prescribed: vitamins, iron, folic acid, medicine for nausea. Elena was impressed with so much medicine. "This must cost a fortune," she said, worried. "Don't worry about money. That's not a problem." On the way back, we stopped at the market. I bought meat, chicken, fish, fruits, vegetables, milk, things that hadn't entered my house for a long time, because I always ate the same thing: rice, beans, pork, and what I managed to plant in the abandoned garden. Elena insisted that it was a lot, but I knew it was little compared to what she and the baby needed. When we got home, the sun was already setting behind the hills. I prepared a careful dinner: grilled steak, white rice, pinto beans, tomato and lettuce salad, stir-fried pumpkin. Elena ate everything with the appetite of someone who could finally eat without fear, without haste, without having to hide. "John," she said after dinner, "how am I going to pay you back for all this?" "You're not going to pay anything. But I need to do something. I can't stay here doing nothing, being supported." I looked at her. Even thin and hurt, there was a strength in those brown eyes. A will to live, to be useful, that suffering hadn't managed to break. "If you want to help, you can take care of the garden. Mary always had a garden in the back of the house. After she died, I let everything die. I didn't have the energy to take care of it." Elena smiled, the second real smile I had seen since I found her. "I know how to work with plants. My mother taught me. She had the gift." "Then it's a deal." That night, Elena didn't have nightmares. She slept peacefully all night. I also slept better, the first restful sleep in a long time. When I woke up the next morning, she was already in the kitchen trying to make coffee. "Let me do it," I said, coming closer. "No. I want to learn how to do it the way you like it. I want to help around the house." And that's how our routine began. I took care of the animals at dawn, and she was learning to take care of the house, not because it was an obligation, but because she wanted to, because it was part of her process of feeling useful again. It wasn't a forced thing. It was natural, as if it had always been like that. The days passed slowly, as time does in the countryside. Elena gained weight, gained color in her face. Her belly started to show more as the weeks passed. She sang sometimes, while taking care of the garden that was being reborn with her careful hands, songs that her mother taught her, old country tunes that filled the house with life. The garden was the first miracle. Elena really had the gift that her mother had passed on. In a short time, we had tomatoes, lettuce, cabbage, chives, parsley, bell peppers. The plants grew lush under her care, as if they felt the affection with which they were treated. "How do you do it?" I asked one day, seeing her talking softly to the tomato plants. "My mother used to say that a plant is like us. It needs attention, affection, someone who believes that it can grow. If you treat it well, it gives you the best it has. It was a simple but profound philosophy, and it worked not only with plants. A month after Elena arrived, we received an unexpected visit. Connie Sue showed up one afternoon saying that she wanted to see how Elena was recovering. "Goodness gracious!" she exclaimed when she saw Elena in the garden. "What a difference! You're a different person." It was true. Elena had gained weight. Her face was flushed. Her hair shone in the sun. More importantly, she smiled frequently and had lost that frightened look of a cornered animal. "It's John's care," said Elena, looking at me with gratitude. "He saved me." "You two saved each other," corrected Connie, with the wisdom of someone who has seen a lot in life. That's how love works. The word hung in the air between us. Love. Neither of us had talked about it yet, but it was there, growing slowly like the plants in the garden. That night, after Connie'd left, we stayed on the porch looking at the stars. It was a warm night, with the smell of grass and damp earth. It had rained during the afternoon, the first rain after weeks of drought. "John," said Elena, leaning against the rocking chair that belonged to Mary, "can I ask you a question?" "Sure. Do you still love your wife?" The question caught me off guard. "I'll always love Mary. She was my first love, my companion for 20 years. Elena nodded thoughtfully. "And is there room in your heart for someone else?" I looked at her in the soft light of the moon, her dark hair falling over her shoulders, her belly already showing under the simple dress, her eyes full of hope and fear. "Elena," I said slowly, "when I found you in that pasture, I was dead inside. I lived, but I wasn't alive. You brought me back to life. That doesn't answer my question." "Yes, it does. You're not competing with Mary's memory. You're creating a new story," and I stopped looking for the right words. "I'm falling in love with you, slowly, but I am." Elena smiled and put her hand on mine. "Me too. I'm falling in love with you, with this house, with this life. For the first time, I feel really at home, but I knew that the peace wouldn't last forever. I knew that sooner or later, her past would knock on our door. And that's exactly what happened on a Thursday in July, when winter was starting to tighten in the Beau Prairie, and the days became shorter. It was noon when I saw the white pickup truck kicking up dust on the road that led to my house. Elena was in the garden, with her back turned, working the soil with her hands, humming softly. The winter sun was shining on her back, and for a moment I thought about how different she was from the girl I found 2 months ago. Stronger, more alive, more beautiful. The pickup truck stopped in front of the house with a sudden stop, kicking up more dust. A tall, thin man got out of it, with an unshaven beard and small, cold eyes. He wore a dirty plaid shirt and an old cowboy hat. But what caught my attention was the way he walked, with the arrogance of someone who is used to intimidating others, of someone who has never heard a no as an answer. He looked around slowly, as if studying the terrain before the attack. When he saw me coming out of the porch, he smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, that had more threat than sympathy. "Good afternoon," he said, taking off his hat in a false courtesy. "Are you John Smith?" "I am. How can I help you?" "My name is Walter Collins. I'm looking for someone. A girl who ran away from home a few weeks ago." My blood ran cold in my veins. It was him, Elena's stepfather. I was sure even before he said her name. The evil was stamped on his face, in the way he spoke, in the way he looked at me. "I don't know about any girl," I replied, trying to keep my voice firm and controlled. "Are you sure?" "Lista de adaptações feitas. Nesta parte. Fazenda, ranch, consistent with previous adaptation. Curral, corral, consistent with previous adaptation. Piquet, paddock, consistent with previous adaptation. Annapolis, Tulsa, city in Goiás replaced with a city in Oklahoma. Goiás, Oklahoma, State in Brazil replaced with a state in the United States. Cristalina, Crystal City. Brazilian city replaced with a US city, maintaining a small-town feel. Dona Conceição. Connie, Brazilian name replaced with a common English equivalent. Cerrado, Prairie, consistent with previous adaptation. Valdomiro Pereira, Walter Collins, Brazilian name replaced with a common English equivalent. Senhor, Mr. Consistent with previous adaptation. Menina, the girl. Conceição, Connie, Brazilian name replaced with a common English equivalent. Cerrado, Prairie, consistent with previous adaptation. Valdomiro Pereira, Walter Collins, Brazilian name replaced with a common English equivalent. Senhor, Mr. Consistent with previous adaptation. Menina, the girl. Here's the adapted text, continuing the story in the US setting and maintaining consistency with the previous adaptations. Texto adaptado. She's a young woman, dark hair, thin. Her name is Eleanor. She's my stepdaughter, my responsibility. Eleanor was still in the garden with her back to us. If she turned around now and saw him, like I said, I haven't seen anyone like that around here. Walter took a step towards me. He was taller than me, younger too, must have been about 40 years old, but I had worked my whole life in the countryside. My hands were calloused, my arms still had strength, and I knew my land like the back of my hand. "Look, John," he said, changing his tone to something more threatening. "I don't want any trouble with you, but this girl is my legal responsibility. She's pregnant. She doesn't have good sense. She could get into trouble, cause problems. If she had passed through here, I would have seen her. My property isn't small, but I know every corner, every movement." "Is that so?" Walter looked towards the garden, where Eleanor was still working the soil. "Can I take a look around the property, just to be sure?" "You can't. This is private property. You don't have a warrant to search my house." He laughed, a low, threatening laugh, full of bad intentions. "John, I don't think you understand the situation. This girl is underage. She's under my legal guardianship. If someone is hiding her, they're committing a crime, a serious crime." I lied without hesitation. "Elena isn't underage. She's 20 years old. How do you know her name and age if you've never seen the girl?" Crap. I had given myself away. Walter Sheen smiled again, satisfied with the trap I had set myself. "So she is here." At that moment, Elena turned around. She saw us talking, and when she recognized Walter, her face turned white as a sheet. The blood seemed to drain downwards. She dropped the hoe and took a staggering step back. "Elena!" shouted Walter, in the voice he should use to call a dog. "Come here now, enough playing around." She shook her head desperately. "No, I won't. Never again." Stubborn girl. Walter started walking towards her with long strides. "You've already caused too much trouble. Let's go. We have things to sort out." I put myself in front of him, blocking the way. "She's not going anywhere. Get out of the way, old man. This isn't your problem. It became my problem the moment she stepped on my land. And now, it's my responsibility to protect her." Walter stopped and stared at me closely. I could smell the cheap whiskey on his breath, even though it was noon. He drank from early on, a sign of a man who had lost control a long time ago. "Listen here," he said, putting his index finger on my chest. "You don't know who you're messing with. I have friends in the police. I have a lawyer. I can make your life a living hell. And you don't know who you're messing with either," I replied, taking his finger off my chest with more force than necessary. "This girl chose to stay here of her own free will, and I'm going to respect her choice. She's my stepdaughter. She's underage. She's pregnant with my son." I felt the rage rise up my spine like fire. "Your son that you forced on her. You raped her." Walter's face changed completely. The mask of a concerned man fell and showed what he really was, a dangerous predator used to using violence to get what he wanted. "Watch what you say, old man. You may regret it bitterly." Elena had come closer, even though she was trembling with fear. "Janu, please, don't mess with him. He's very dangerous." "I can see that." I looked directly into Walter's eyes without flinching. "And you know why a man is dangerous? Because he's a coward. Because he only attacks those who can't defend themselves. He only does evil to those who are weaker." Walter took a step back and reached for his waist. That's when I saw the bulge of the gun under his shirt, a poorly hidden revolver. "Last warning. John, hand over the girl and everyone goes their own way in peace. And if I don't hand her over, then things get very ugly for everyone, and I mean everyone." Elena stood beside me even though she was scared. "I'm not going with you. Never again. I'd rather die." "Yes, you are. And you're going to have the boy far away from here too. It's my blood, my responsibility." "It's not your blood," said Elena, with a strength that surprised me. "It's the devil's son. That's what it is." Walter took a threatening step towards her, but I stepped in the way again. "Don't lay a finger on her." "Or what? Are you going to hit me? An old man like you?" "If I have to, and I'm not that old." He laughed again, but now with less certainty. "Stubborn old man. Fine, I'll give you one last chance to think better." He looked at the cheap watch on his wrist. "By noon tomorrow, I want Elena on the road with her things. If she's not there, I'll be back here with backup, and then there will be no conversation or negotiation." He went back to the pickup truck without haste, as if he was absolutely sure that he was going to get what he wanted. Before getting in the car, he shouted to Elena, "And you, ungrateful girl, remember that I was the one who raised you after your mother died. Is this how you pay me back? Running away, giving me trouble, embarrassing me in town?" The pickup truck disappeared in the dust of the road, leaving a heavy silence. Eleanor collapsed on the ground in the garden, crying with despair. "He'll be back," she sobbed. "He'll take me. He'll take my son. He'll kill me." I knelt beside her and held her hands that were shaking like leaves in the wind. "He won't. Not while I'm alive. You don't understand. John, he knows bad people. People who do anything for money. He has friends in the police. He has armed people who work for him. Then we'll prepare." Eleanor looked at me with eyes red from crying. How? How are we going to prepare against someone like that?" It was a question that didn't have an easy answer. How was a 52-year-old farmer going to face a younger man, armed, with dangerous connections and willing to use violence? But as I looked at Elena, so young, so scared, carrying an innocent life in her belly, I knew I had no choice. I was going to fight, until the end, with all the strength I had. "First, we're going to town. You're going to file a police report against him." He said he has friends in the police. Not all of them are his friends, and even if some were, we have to try. We have to have a record of what he did, what he threatened. I helped Elena up. "Let's go. Get your things." "Where are we going after that?" "To the police station, and then to my sister's house in Tulsa. You'll be safe there until we resolve this situation. And you?" "I'll stay here. Someone has to take care of the animals, the property." Elena shook her head forcefully. "No, if he comes back and you're alone, if he comes back, he'll find me waiting. John, please, come with me. Don't leave me to face this alone." I looked at the Ranch Norwood, the house I built with Road, Mary, the pastures I took care of my whole life, the animals that depended on me. Then I looked at Elena, who in a few weeks had become more important than anything material. "Okay, we'll go together, but first, the police station." We went to Crystal City in my pickup truck. On the way, Elena told everything to the officer who attended us, the abuse she suffered for months, the abandonment in the pasture surrounded by dogs, today's threats. The man, a serious middle-aged guy, listened carefully and wrote everything down in minute detail. "I'm going to issue an emergency protective order," he said after hearing everything. "If this Walter gets close to you, he can be arrested immediately. And if he doesn't respect the order? I asked. Then it's a case for the state police, for the tactical force. But ma'am, he said, looking directly at Elena, the best thing to do is to stay away from here for a while. This type of man doesn't give up easily, and sometimes justice takes a while to work. We left the police station with the protective order in hand, but without much hope. Paper doesn't stop bullets, as they say in the countryside. John, said Elena on the way back home, thank you for everything you're doing. No need to thank me. Yes, I do. You're risking your life, your property, your peace for me, and you barely know me. I know you enough. I know enough to know that you deserve to be protected. But what if we can't? What if he... Elena. I stopped the pickup truck on the side of the road and held her hands. Look at me. This man has already hurt you too much. He's not going to hurt you anymore. I promise. How can you promise something like that? Because I'm going to do everything in my power, and if I can't do it alone, I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to fight in court. I'm going to look for influential people. I'm going to do whatever it takes. When we got home, the sun was already setting. The ranchans seemed different, as if it knew that danger was lurking. The animals were restless. The horses were neighing for no apparent reason. Even the dogs on the property were walking around nervously, sniffing the air. Let's pack our bags, I said. Tomorrow we're leaving here early. Eleanor nodded, but when we got to the porch, we saw that the door to the house was ajar. I was absolutely sure that I had closed and locked it before leaving. Stay here, I whispered to Elena. I went in slowly, prepared for anything. The living room was turned upside down, as if a hurricane had passed through. Drawers open, papers scattered on the floor, furniture out of place. Someone had looked for something, or someone wanted to send a very clear message. On the kitchen table, there was a note written in crooked handwriting from someone who didn't have much education. Until tomorrow, John. And bring the girl. Otherwise, things are going to get very ugly for everyone. I looked around the ransacked house. Whoever had done that knew exactly that we weren't home. They had waited for us to leave to give the message, to show that they could come in whenever they wanted. Elena appeared at the door, saw the mess, and turned as pale as the wall. They were here, she said, her voice trembling. They were, but they're gone now. John, we have to run away. Now, we can't wait until tomorrow. I looked at the ransacked house, at the terrified Eleanor, at the darkness that was coming outside. I had two options, run away like cowards or stay and face what was coming. No, I said finally, we're not going to run away, not anymore. But, Eleanor, if we run away now, we'll have to run away forever. This type of man doesn't give up. He'll go after you until he finds you, no matter where you hide. Then what are we going to do? I looked out the window. Outside, the moon was rising, illuminating the pastures with a silvery light. It was my land, my home, the place where I built a life with Mary, where I found Elena, where I was trying to rebuild happiness, and I wasn't going to let anyone kick me out of it. We're going to prepare, and tomorrow, when they come back, they'll find us ready for the fight. Elena looked at me as if I had gone crazy, and maybe I had. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt that I had something worth fighting for until the end. We spent the whole night preparing the house as if it were a fort. I boarded up all the windows with wood, checked the locks, put heavy furniture in front of the main doors. Elena helped me in silence, still scared but determined not to run away anymore. "John," she said, when we were pushing the heavy wardrobe in front of the bedroom door. "Do you have a gun?" "I have an old shotgun. It belonged to my father. Do you know how to use it?" "I do, but I sincerely hope I don't need to." I didn't tell her that the shotgun was rusty, kept at the back of the closet for years without maintenance. I didn't tell her that the last time I shot it was to kill a rattlesnake in the yard more than 5 years ago. I didn't tell her that my hands were shaking just thinking about pointing a gun at another human being, even someone like Walter. At 2 in the morning, Eleanor finally managed to sleep a little, overcome by exhaustion and stress. I stayed awake, sitting in the dark room, looking through the crack in the window. Outside, the crickets were singing as if nothing had changed in the world. The moon illuminated the pasture where I found Elena more than 2 months ago. It seemed like a lifetime. I thought about Mary. What would she say if she saw me in that situation? I think she would understand. Mary always had a soft heart for those who suffered. It was she who taught me that sometimes we have to be strong for others, even when we don't feel strong inside. "Help me, Mary," I whispered to the dark. "Give me strength to do the right thing. Help me protect Elena and the baby." The wind swayed the old curtains, as if she had heard and was answering in the way she could. At 5 in the morning, Elena woke up screaming. Another nightmare with Walter. I ran to the room and turned on the light. She was sweating cold, shaking like a leaf. "It was just a dream," I said, holding her hand that was ice cold. "You're safe here with me." I dreamed that he had taken me back, that he had tied me up again, and she couldn't finish the sentence. "Stop those thoughts. None of that is going to happen." Elena looked at me with eyes red from crying during the night. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I won't let it. Because I'm going to fight until I can't anymore." "And if you can't protect me? And if he's stronger?" "Elena." I sat on the edge of the bed and held her face between my calloused hands. "Look at me. This man has already hurt you too much. He took away your childhood, your innocence, your peace. He's not going to hurt you anymore. I promise that in the memory of my wife. But what if he hurts you? What if something happens?" "It won't happen. And if it does, you take the pickup truck and go straight to the police station. Don't look back. Don't hesitate, understand?" Elena nodded, but I saw that she was thinking the same thing as me. If Walter really had friends in the police station wouldn't do much good. We made coffee early and tried to eat something, but neither of us had an appetite. Elena could barely swallow a piece of bread. I forced a few spoonfuls of porridge, knowing that I would need energy for what was to come. "What time do you think they'll arrive?" she asked. He said noon. A man like him likes to set a time, to seem like he's in control of the situation. And if more people come with him, we'll manage. One thing at a time. It wasn't a very good plan, but it was what we had. At 9 in the morning, I went out to take care of the animals one last time. I gave feed to the horses, took the cattle out of the corral to graze far from the house, closed the chickens in the coop. If there was a commotion, I didn't want the animals to get hurt or lost. Elena stayed in the kitchen, looking out the window, one hand always on her belly that was already showing the pregnancy. From time to time, she spoke softly to the baby, promising that she would protect him, apologizing for putting him in that dangerous situation. At 11:30, I heard the sound of engines on the road. It wasn't just one pickup truck like the day before. There were at least 3 vehicles, maybe more. "Elena!" I yelled. "They're coming, and they came in a bunch." She ran to the living room. We looked through the crack in the window and saw a procession of vehicles kicking up dust on the dirt road. Walter's white pickup truck in front, and behind it, 2 dark pickups with armed men in the truck bed. "My God," Elena whispered, "how many are there?" I counted at least 6 men, all clearly armed. Shotguns, revolvers, machetes. They looked like highwaymen. "Elena, listen carefully. Go to the bedroom and lock yourself in there. Whatever happens, don't come out until I call you by name. I'm not going to leave you alone against these people." "Yes, you are. It's an order. You have to think about your son now." "John, Elena." I grabbed her shoulders firmly. "You have a life growing inside you. That child needs its mother. Go to the room and hide." She looked me in the eyes for a moment that seemed eternal, then gave me a quick kiss on the face. "Thank you for everything you've done for me. Go now, and remember, if things get ugly, you run away through the back door and go to town." Eleanor ran to the bedroom. I heard the key turning in the lock. The vehicles stopped in front of the house in a cloud of red dust. "Walter, got out of the pickup truck and came walking slowly, like a gunslinger from a Western movie. The other men were scattered around the house, all with guns on display, closing off any escape route. I took a deep breath, grabbed the old and rusty shotgun, and went out to the porch. "Good morning, John," said Walter, taking off his hat in a false courtesy. "Have you come to hand over my stepdaughter? She's not your property, and she won't be handed over to anyone." "Oh, is that so?" Walter said, smiled and made a gesture to the men. They spread out even more around the house, some going to the back. "I brought some friends to help me convince you to be more reasonable." I looked at the men, faces of few friends, all clearly used to violence. One of them, a bald guy with an ugly scar on his face, was messing with a can that seemed to be gasoline. "What are you going to do? Burn me alive?" "Only if necessary," said Walter coldly. "But I prefer to resolve this through civilized dialogue. Hand over the girl, and everyone goes home in peace. I've already said no, and I'll repeat it as many times as necessary. John, you don't understand the situation. This girl is my legal property. I raised her, I supported her after her mother died. Now she's carrying my son. I'm not going to let her raise my blood away from me. Your blood is rotten, and that child will be much better off without you around." Walter's face changed. The mask of a civilized man fell completely, showing the animal that was inside. "Enough talk." He made a dry gesture to the men. "Zeke, Billy, you go through the back door. Danny and Ricky through the bedroom windows. Charlie, you stay with me here in the front." The men began to move like wolves circling their prey. I pointed the shotgun in Walter's direction. "Tell them to stop or I'll shoot." "Or what? Are you going to shoot everyone? How many shots does that old shotgun have?" It was a good question. The shotgun only had 2 shots. There were 6 armed men. "If necessary, I'll shoot you first." Walter laughed, but there was nervousness in his laugh. "John, you're brave, but you're not stupid. Hand over the girl and no one gets hurt." That's when I heard the sound of glass breaking in the back of the house. Elena screamed. Between silence and hope, 6 months had passed since the day though Walter Shu was arrested. 6 months of absolute peace, of starting over, of discovering how good it is to wake up every day, knowing that there is someone special to share life with and build the future. Elena was 8 months pregnant now. Her round and big belly no longer allowed her to bend down properly to take care of the garden, so I helped more. She directed the activities from the rocking chair, and I executed. "Plant the tomatoes more over here, John. Water the lettuce, but not too much, or the roots will rot. Be careful with the zucchini, it's growing crooked." The house had come back to have real life. The smell of homemade food in the kitchen, country music on the old radio, long conversations at the dinner table. Elena sang while she cooked, things that her mother taught her, old tunes that I hadn't heard for years. And I, who had solemnly sworn that I would never get attached to anyone again, discovered that the heart doesn't obey oaths made in pain. We didn't talk openly about what we felt for each other. It was as if we both knew that it was too early, that it was necessary to let things happen in the right, natural time. But I saw it in the way she looked at me, in the special care she had for me, in the smile that appeared when I arrived from the pasture, sweaty and tired. And she saw in me the protection, the affection, the certainty that she was finally at home. "John," she said one golden morning in December while we were having coffee on the porch and watching the little birds, "I want to ask you an important question. You can ask. If the baby is a boy, would you let me give him your name?" I almost choked on my coffee. "My name? John Smith. I felt my eyes filling with water like dams in the rainy season. 3 years ago, when Mary Shea died, I thought I would never have a son to carry my name, to continue the family lineage. And now Elena was offering that, the greatest gift a woman can give a man. Are you absolutely sure? I am. You're going to be the father he's going to know. The father who's going to teach him to walk, to talk, to be a good man. So it's more than fair that he has your name. And if it's a girl, Eleanor smiled with that sweetness that melted me, then she'll be Mary. I marry Elena in honor of the two most important women in your life. My heart almost stopped beating. Why? Because I know that your wife was a good, generous woman, and because I want to honor the two women you love, she who left and I who arrived. I couldn't say anything. I just got up from the chair and hugged Elena with all the care, feeling her round belly between us, feeling the life that was growing inside there like a miracle. Thank you, I whispered in her ear. Thank you for giving me a family again, for making me feel like a father even before the child is born. That afternoon we went to town to do another routine exam. Connie said that everything was perfect with the baby, but that Elena needed to rest more in the last days. No heavy work, she said with the authority of someone who knew the subject. And if you feel anything strange, a different pain, come here right away. On the way back, we stopped at the registry office to sort out some papers. Elena wanted to formalize the change of her last name. She no longer wanted to carry even the shadow of her stepfather's name. The clerk, an old man, and known to me since childhood, asked the usual questions. Are you married? Eleanor turned as red as a pepper. No, sir. Are you getting married soon? She looked at me, not knowing what to answer. I was also in doubt. We haven't decided officially yet, I said. Well, when you decide, come here. I've known John for a long time. He's a good man, hard-working, honest. On the way back home, we were silent for most of the way, until Elena broke the silence. John, do you think we should get married? Do you want to? I don't know. I'm scared. Scared of what? Scared of ruining what we have. Scared that you'll get tired of me over time. Scared of not being a good wife, of not knowing how to take care of a house properly. I stopped the pickup truck on the side of the dusty road and looked at her seriously. Elena, you've given me more joy in these last months than I've had in the last 3 years together. You've made me remember that I'm still capable of loving, of caring, of being truly happy. How do you think you would get me tired of you? Because I'm baggage. John, I came into your life pregnant with another man's child, with nothing, only with problems and sadness. You came into my life like a gift from heaven, and this baby, I put my hand on her belly with affection, this baby is going to be our child. It doesn't matter where it came from, it matters where it's going to be raised, with how much love it's going to be surrounded. Eleanor started to cry, a gentle cry of pure emotion. So, you really want to marry me? I do, more than anything in the world. Then it's decided. After the baby is born, we'll get married. Why wait for the baby to be born? Because I want him to participate in the wedding. I want it to be a complete family celebration with all members present. 2 weeks later, on a hot January dawn, I woke up with Elena shaking me urgently. John, wake up. I opened my eyes and saw that she was pale, with an expression of pain and fear. What's wrong? I think it's time for the baby. But isn't it too early? It hasn't completed 9 months yet. I know, but the pains are coming every half hour. Elena bent over, holding her belly with both hands. She moaned in pain. Let's go to the hospital right away, I said, already grabbing the keys and the bag she had prepared. John, I'm scared. No need to be scared. Everything will be all right. The baby is strong. But as I said that, my heart was racing like a frightened horse. What if something went wrong? What if the birth was complicated? What if I lost Elena too? On the way to Crystal City, Elena had 5 more strong contractions, each one more intense than the previous one. She squeezed my hand so hard that she left finger marks. I can't take it anymore, she moaned. It hurts too much. Yes, you can. You're the strongest woman I know, stronger than anyone. What if the baby isn't well formed? What if something goes wrong? It's going to be perfect. It's going to be born perfect and healthy. We arrived at the small hospital in Crystal City, and Elena went straight to the delivery room. I stayed in the narrow corridor, walking from one side to the other like a madman, praying to all the saints I knew, and some that I didn't even know the name. Connie appeared running, still putting on her coat. I heard Elena arrived. How is she? I don't know. They're doing the delivery now. I'm very nervous. 8.5 months. It's a little early, but it's not dangerous. Babies of that age are born well, healthy. Are you sure? I am. Relax. John, everything will be all right. Elena is strong, but I couldn't relax. I walked through the corridor, listening to Elena's moans from the other side of the door. Each sound of her pain was a stab in my chest. I wanted to enter, help, do something, but I could only wait. 3 hours later, the doctor came out of the room with a smile on his face. John? That's me. How are they? They? Elena and the baby. The doctor smiled even more. They're great, both of them. Congratulations, it's a girl. I felt my legs weaken with relief. Can I see them? Of course, they're waiting for you. I entered the room and saw Elena in bed, tired but radiant, holding a small bundle in her arms. When she saw me, her eyes sparkled like stars. Come meet our daughter, she said, with a tired but happy voice. I came closer and looked at the little child. She was tiny, but perfect. Wet, dark hair like her mother, red and wrinkled face, and when she opened her eyes, I saw that they were light brown, almost golden. She's the most beautiful thing in the world, I whispered. Do you want to hold her? Elena placed the baby in my arms. She was so light, so fragile, so perfect. She fit in my calloused hands like a porcelain doll. Hi, Mary. Elena, I said softly. Welcome to the world. Dad and Mom were waiting for you. The baby looked at me as if she was studying my face, trying to memorize it. Then she yawned and closed her eyes. She liked you, said Elena. How do you know? Because she stopped crying. She only stops when she feels safe and loved. I stood there, holding my daughter, because she was my daughter, no matter what the blood test said, feeling a happiness that couldn't fit in my chest. Elena, I said, without taking my eyes off the baby. Thank you. For what? For giving me her. For giving me a family. For giving me a reason to wake up happy every day. Elena reached out and touched my face with affection. Thank you for giving us a home, for giving us love, for giving us the chance to start over. Mary. Elena chose that moment to open her eyes again and look at me fixedly, and I swear I saw a small smile on her perfect little face. I think she agrees, said Elena, laughing softly. Agrees with what? That we form a perfect family. I looked at Elena, tired but radiant. I looked at the baby in my arms, so small and so perfect. I thought about the house that was waiting for us, about the life that we were going to build together, about the happy years that were ahead. Yes, I said with conviction, the best family in the world. A year after the birth of, Mary. Elena, on a golden March morning, I was on the porch having coffee and watching the movement of the ranch. The cows were grazing peacefully in the green field. The horses were running free in the paddock. The rooster was crowing to the sun that was rising behind the distant hills, announcing another day of peace and prosperity. Eleanor was in the kitchen preparing Mary Eleanor's bottle, humming a country tune that she learned from me. The baby had grown strong and healthy, with rosy cheeks and a smile that lit up the cloudiest days. She was already walking, staggering around the house, laughed when I made faces for her, and said Daddy and Mommy with the greatest naturalness in the world. John, shouted Eleanor from the kitchen, come see something. I ran inside, thinking that something had happened, but I found Elena standing in front of the table with her eyes shining with pure emotion. What is it? Look. She pointed to the floor where Mary. Elena was standing alone, without support, taking her first hesitant steps towards the chair. She did it! She's walking! She did it! Her first steps! I knelt on the floor and clapped. Congratulations, Princess! You're very smart. Mary. Eleanor looked at me and gave that toothless smile that melted any heart. Then she came staggering towards me with her arms outstretched. Come to Daddy, I said, holding out my arms. She came to me and clung to my shirt, trying to balance. I held her in my arms and she began to babble. Da-da-da-da. Did you hear that? I asked Elena, excited. She's perfecting, Daddy. She is. Our daughter is very intelligent. Our daughter. Elena always spoke like that, as if... Mary. Elena had been born from the love of the two. And for me, it was the purest truth. From the first day, from the first cry, from the first smile, she was my daughter of heart and soul. Elena, I said, still holding Mary. Elena in my arms. I think the time has come. Time for what? To set a date for our wedding. To make our family official. Elena stopped tidying up the kitchen and looked at me. Are you absolutely sure? I am. I want our daughter to grow up seeing her parents married. I want her to have a complete, real family, registered at the courthouse. But what about the papers, and the courthouse, and all the red tape? We'll sort everything out. One thing at a time, with patience. Elena smiled and came to give me a kiss. Mary. Elena, between the two of us, giggled as if she perfectly understood what was happening. Then let's get married, said Elena. Let's do it. 3 weeks later, we were at the Crystal City Courthouse, dressed for the big day. Elena wore a simple but beautiful white dress that we bought in town. I had put on my best dress shirt and the pants that I hadn't worn for years. Mary. Elena was a doll in a yellow dress that Connie had sewn especially for the occasion. There weren't many guests, just Connie, the officer who had helped us with Walter's case, some neighbors, and the people from town who knew us. But the joy I felt was greater than any big party with hundreds of people. When the justice of the peace asked if I took Elena as my wife, I looked into her eyes and saw our whole story there. The frightened girl I found in the pasture. The courageous woman who faced her own fears. The dedicated mother who took care of our daughter as if she were the greatest treasure in the universe. I do, I said with a firm and clear voice. And you, Elena, do you take Jonathan as your husband? Elena looked at me with eyes full of tears of happiness. I do, with all my heart and all my soul. When we kissed to seal the marriage. Mary. Elena clapped her hands and shouted, Daddy, Mommy, as if she was approving the official union. Everyone laughed heartily. Now you are an official family before the law, said the justice of the peace. A family. After 3 years of complete loneliness, after thinking that I would never be happy again, I had a family again. A wife I truly loved, and a daughter who was the light of my eyes. On the way back home, we stopped at the cemetery where Mary was buried. Elena had insisted on going there, even though I said it wasn't necessary. I need to, she said with conviction. I need to thank her. Thank her for what? For taking such good care of you, for teaching you how to love truly. If it weren't for her love, you wouldn't know how to love me. We stood there, all three of us, me, Elena, and Mary, Elena in her arms, in front of the simple cross where my first wife was buried. Mary, said Elena, in a loud and clear voice, thank you for making him the wonderful man he is. I promise to take good care of him for the rest of his life. And I promise that our daughter will know who you were, will know your story. I felt my eyes filling with water for the first time in a long time. For the first time in 3 years, being in that place didn't give me sadness. It gave me deep gratitude. Gratitude for Mary, having taught me to love. Gratitude for having found Elena. Gratitude for having Mary, Elena, in my arms. Thank you, Mary, I whispered, for everything you taught me, for preparing me for this moment. The wind swayed the fresh flowers that Elena had brought as if Mary was blessing our union. That night, after putting Mary saw Elena to sleep in her little crib, Elena and I stayed on the porch looking at the stars that shone in the clear sky. It was a warm night with the smell of grass and wet earth. It had rained during the afternoon. "John," said Elena, leaning on my shoulder, "do you regret anything? Regret having found you?" "Never. No. I regret having taken so long to have the courage to leave Walter's house. If I had left earlier, maybe I wouldn't have gone through so much suffering. But if you had left earlier, maybe our story would be different. Maybe we wouldn't have met." Elena thought for a while. "It's true. Sometimes bad things happen so we can get to the good things. Mary always said that God writes straight with crooked lines. She was very wise. She was. And so are you." Elena turned to look at me seriously. "John, promise me something." "I promise. If one day you get tired of me, if one day you think you made the wrong choice in marrying me, tell me the truth. Don't let me live in a lie." I held her face between my hands with all affection. "Elena, listen carefully to what I'm going to say. I found you when I was completely lost. You saved me as much as I saved you. You gave me a daughter. You gave me a family. You gave me a reason to wake up happy every day. How do you think I would get tired of that? Because I'm not Mary. I'll never be like her. And you don't need to be. You are Elena. And Elena is everything I need, everything I want." Elena smiled and gave me a long kiss. Inside. "Mary." Elena made a noise in her sleep, and we both ran to see if everything was okay. She was sleeping peacefully, with her little fist closed near her angelic face. "She looks like a real angel," whispered Elena. "She is an angel. Our little angel." 2 years passed like a good dream. Mary. Elena was already 3 years old, already ran around the yard after the chickens, already helped her mother in the garden with her little hands. She spoke correctly, sang the songs that Elena taught her, and called me Daddy with the naturalness of someone who had never known another reality. Elena had blossomed completely. She had gained weight in the right measure. Her face was always flushed with health, and there was a peace in her eyes that didn't exist when I found her. She took care of the house, of the garden, of her daughter, and still had energy left to help me with the animals on the busiest days. The drenched eye had never been so prosperous. The pastures were green, the cattle were fat, the garden was producing all year round. It was as if the family's happiness had contaminated the land, making everything grow with more vigor. One hot afternoon in December, while Marigo and Elena was taking a nap, Elena and I were repairing the pasture fence when she stopped working and looked at me with that special look. "John, I have some news for you." I stopped hammering the wire and looked at her. "What news?" "I'm pregnant again." The hammer almost slipped from my hand. "Pregnant? 2 months along. I confirmed it today with Connie." I felt an explosion of joy so great that it didn't fit in my chest. I dropped the tools and hugged Elena, lifting her off the ground and spinning. "Seriously? I'm going to be a father again?" "Yes, and this time it's going to be our biological son, of our blood." I stopped spinning and looked into her eyes seriously. "Elena, Mary, Elena is already our real daughter, and this baby is going to be too. There's no difference between blood and love for me." "I know that, but aren't you happy to have a son who's going to look like you?" "I'm happy to have another child. That's all that matters." Eleanor started to cry, that gentle cry of emotion that I already knew so well. "How lucky I was to find you in that pasture," she said. "The luck was all mine." That night, we told Mary and Elena that she was going to have a little brother or sister. She clapped her hands with joy and asked to kiss her mother's belly. "Hi, baby," she said, touching her little mouth to Elena's still smooth belly. "I'm your sister, Mary. Elena, I'm going to take good care of you." Elena looked at me over the head of our daughter, and I saw in her eyes the same immense gratitude that I felt. Gratitude for life having given us a second chance. Gratitude for having found in each other the family we always dreamed of. 9 months later, on a clear September dawn, John Smith Jar was born. A strong, healthy boy with his father's light eyes and his mother's dark hair. Mary. Elena was delighted with her little brother and named herself his official protector. Now our family was complete. Me, Elena, Mary, Elena, and John. 4 people who truly loved each other, who took care of each other, who faced any difficulty together. Today, when I look back and see the whole journey we've traveled, I'm impressed with the paths of life, how everything fit perfectly. The pain of losing. Mary prepared me to value Elena's love even more. The loneliness prepared me to appreciate every moment with family. The empty years prepared me to live the years full of meaning. And it all started that day in June, when I saw a girl lying in the pasture, surrounded by hungry dogs. If I had driven past, if I hadn't stopped to help, none of this would have happened. Our story wouldn't exist. Sometimes I think, how many Elenas do we let pass in life? How many chances to change our destiny do we lose because we are in a hurry, afraid, or simply don't want to get involved with other people's problems? I learned that true happiness doesn't come alone. It comes when we open our hearts to others, when we choose to extend a hand instead of closing our eyes, when we understand that saving someone can be the only way to save ourselves too. Elena saved me as much as I saved her. Mary, Elena, and thus John saved us all, giving total meaning to our existence. And now, with our family growing in love and prosperity, I know that we are on the right path. On the porch of the house, where I usually have coffee every morning watching the movement of the Bar Ranch, there's a phrase that Elena embroidered and framed. God writes straight with crooked lines. It was Mary's favorite saying, which became the motto of our family, because sometimes the path to happiness passes through the deepest pain. Sometimes we need to get completely lost to truly find ourselves. And sometimes, just when we think there's no more hope in the world, life sends a gift disguised as a tragedy. My gift had dark hair, frightened brown eyes, and was being devoured by dogs on a scorching June afternoon. But when I reached out to save her, I discovered that the one who was being saved was me. And that's what makes the difference between an empty life and a life full of purpose. The courage to reach out when someone needs it. Because in the end, we are only truly happy when we can make someone happy too. My story with Elena started with a simple gesture, stopping to help a stranger in danger, and it continues every day with simple gestures. A coffee made with care, a smile at the right time, a lap when needed, a word of comfort when the world gets heavy. It doesn't take great deeds to change a whole life. Sometimes it's enough to open the door of your house and let someone in. Sometimes it's enough to look into the eyes of someone who is suffering and see a human being who deserves love and dignity. Today, when I see Mary Elena playing in the yard with her little brother, when I hear Elena humming in the kitchen, when I put the children to sleep and they call me Dad, I have absolute certainty the best thing I did in my life was to get off that horse on a June afternoon and reach out to a stranger. Because it was there, in that decisive moment, that I stopped just existing and started living for real again. My story with Elena taught me that sometimes we need to get lost to truly find ourselves. And when we reach out to help someone, we discover that the ones who need salvation the most are ourselves. It doesn't matter how much life has hurt us. It doesn't matter how many times we fall and think we're not going to get up anymore. There's always a new chance to start over, a new opportunity to love, a new life waiting to be born from the rubble of the old one. Just have the courage to reach out when someone needs it. Because in the end, saving the other is the only way to truly save ourselves. Sometimes we need to get lost to truly find ourselves, and when we reach out to help someone, we discover that the ones who need salvation the most are ourselves. It doesn't matter how much life has hurt us. There's always a new chance to start over, a new opportunity to love. Just have the courage to reach out when someone needs it.